Subscribe to Keep It Terrifying for creepy tales, horror, and nightmares you won't forget. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and keep it terrifying.
Title: The Storm of Black Barrow Island. Part 1, The First Thunder. Ronald had never liked storms. Something about the crackle of lightning and the howling wind made his skin crawl, not fear exactly, but a primal unease. Still, when he moved to Black Barrow Island, he told himself he had to get over it. It was the only place left to him, his grandfather's old cabin perched near the island's rocky cliffs, surrounded by dense pine forest and miles of churning sea. It wasn't much of an inheritance, but after the funeral, with no one else in his life and nowhere to go, it had become home. No electricity except a generator, no cell service, and the mailboat only came once a week. Ronald liked the solitude, mostly. Until the storm came. It started subtly, thick gray clouds rolling in over the horizon during the afternoon, blotting out the sun and casting the island in early twilight. Ronald was chopping wood when the first raindrops fell. Cold and heavy, they hit with sharp slaps, soaking his shirt in seconds. He muttered and dragged the firewood inside, stacking it near the old cast-iron stove. By nightfall, the rain was relentless. Thunder cracked above like splintering bones, and the wind howled through the trees, bending them violently. Ronald lit oil lamps and tried to read, but every flicker of lightning made the shadows twitch unnaturally, and the thunder seemed to shake the floor beneath him. Then the knocking started. Not from the front door, but the back wall, 3 sharp raps, evenly spaced. Knock. 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 Ronald froze, heart thudding. He waited, listening. Nothing. Just wind and rain. He slowly approached the back window and peered out. Only forest. Rain-blurred shapes swayed under the wind's force. Nothing else. He told himself it was a branch. Maybe debris from the trees. But deep down, he knew the sound hadn't been random. It had rhythm. Intent. He returned to his chair, clutching the blanket like a shield. Knock. 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 This time it came from the front door. Ronald stood up fast, heart pounding. The storm outside shrieked like something alive. Then, silence. He waited. Then a whisper, nearly lost to the wind, "Ronald." His blood turned to ice. The voice was low and rasping, as though dragged over stone. It came from outside the door. Not quite human. He said nothing, didn't move. Just stared. Then another voice, this time, his own. "Ronald." Identical inflection. Identical tone. But from outside. As if someone, or something, had recorded him and was playing it back. Ronald backed away slowly, heart pounding, and snatched the axe from beside the stove. Not to fight, he knew better than to think he could fight a voice like that, but to feel less alone. The lamps flickered. Once. Twice. Then died. Darkness swallowed the cabin. He stood in the stillness, listening to the storm tear through the trees. Inside, it was dead silent. Then he heard footsteps, from the attic above. But Ronald knew one thing for certain. This cabin didn't have an attic. Part 2, The Room That Shouldn't Be. Ronald didn't move. The footsteps were slow. Deliberate. Each step creaked across the ceiling, impossibly close. The layout of the cabin was simple, 1 floor, 1 bedroom, a small kitchen, and no stairs, none. No attic. No crawl space. And yet something was walking directly above him. The axe in his hand felt too small, too useless. Creak. Creak. Then silence. Ronald inched toward the center of the room and looked up. The ceiling was low, covered in old, water-stained planks. No hatch. No trapdoor. Just wood. His breath fogged in the suddenly cold air. The storm screamed outside, slamming rain against the windows like thrown stones. Thunder rolled in deep waves, but inside the cabin, it was as if the world were holding its breath. Ronald backed into the kitchen and opened the drawer where he kept a flashlight. It flickered weakly, its batteries nearly drained, but it was better than nothing. The beam trembled as he moved it across the ceiling. Then he saw it. Not a hatch, but a seam. A perfect rectangle outlined in dust and shadows. He could have sworn it wasn't there before. The outline of a door. He should have left then. Gone out into the storm, into the woods, even into the sea. But something, curiosity or madness, held him in place. As he stared, something behind the ceiling door moved. Tap. 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 Not a knock. A single finger. Testing the wood. Then a faint whisper, so low it was like breath against his ear. Let me down. Ronald's skin crawled. He took several steps back, bumping into the kitchen counter. He should have run. He almost did. But then something made him stop. A sound. Crying. A child's voice. Small, muffled, and full of fear. Please, it whimpered. It's so dark. He froze. It was impossible. But real. Too real. His mind flashed to memories of the island, things his grandfather had said in riddles, warnings about the woods at night, tales Ronald dismissed as senile rambling. Don't answer the knocking, his grandfather had once whispered. Not unless you wanted to stay. Back then, Ronald thought he meant vagrants or pranksters. Now, he wasn't sure. The crying stopped. Another creak. Another footstep. Then, a new sound. Scraping. Wood on wood. From the far corner of the cabin, where a bookshelf leaned against the wall, it was moving, slowly, as if being pushed from behind. Ronald raised the flashlight. The bookshelf slid aside, revealing what should have been a solid wall. But it wasn't. Behind the shelf, was a door. A narrow, rotted wooden door, barely tall enough to crawl through. Its surface was covered in strange carvings, symbols that hurt to look at, like someone had scratched them into the wood using fingernails or bone. Ronald's breath caught in his throat. He didn't know what was worse, the thing above the ceiling, or the thing that had just revealed the door. Then, from the other side, something knocked. Knock. 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 3 times. Then silence. Ronald tightened his grip on the axe, his hands slick with sweat. He took one step toward the hidden door. It creaked open on its own. A rush of cold air spilled into the room, smelling of salt, rot, and something far older than the island itself. Inside was a staircase. Leading down. But there was no basement. The island was all rock. Solid, ancient stone. And yet the staircase waited, descending into pitch darkness. Then came the whisper again, soft and eager. Come see. Part 3, Below the Stone. Ronald stood at the edge of the door, his breath shallow. The staircase descended into absolute blackness, steep and narrow, carved directly into the stone beneath the cabin. A place that should not exist. He aimed the flickering flashlight down into the void. The beam died after just a few feet, swallowed by the dark. Cold air drifted upward, brushing his face like fingers. Come see, the whisper echoed again, this time from behind him. He whirled around, swinging the flashlight. Nothing. Just the empty room, the storm outside, and the door still wide open. Ronald looked back into the stairwell. He should have turned and run. But the storm outside felt almost safer than what was happening in the cabin. Almost. He stepped through the narrow doorway. The air changed the moment he passed through, thick, damp, and humming. The stone walls were slick with moisture, and the deeper he descended, the more the sounds of the storm faded, until there was only silence. The flashlight flickered again, its beam sputtering. Ronald slapped it, and it came back just in time to reveal that the walls were not carved with tools. They were etched. Scraped by something, claws, perhaps. Or teeth. Symbols covered every surface, circular patterns. Spindly shapes. Something like writing, but not in any language he knew. And beneath them, scrawled in what looked like charcoal or old blood, "Do not listen." He stopped. Another symbol glowed faintly beneath the warning. Not with light, but with motion, as if the lines of the carving were slowly writhing beneath the surface. The hair on Ronald's arms stood straight up. The stairs twisted, and he found himself in a narrow corridor with no end in sight. The stone was darker here, almost black. The floor was smoother, polished, unnatural. Like it had been used. The flashlight dimmed again. Ronald cursed under his breath. Then, ahead, a faint light. Not from the flashlight. A soft, pulsing blue, like moonlight reflecting off water. He crept forward. The corridor opened into a vast underground chamber. It was impossible in size, larger than the cabin, larger than the island itself should have allowed. A smooth, circular space with a ceiling that vanished into darkness above. And at the center stood a stone pedestal, surrounded by dozens of withered shapes. Bodies. Small. Twisted. Like dried-up husks. Ronald stumbled back, covering his mouth. Then the light shifted. From the pedestal rose a shape. Not a person, not anymore. It had a face, but no features. Just stretched, translucent skin over a skull-like head. It moved like fog, flowing instead of walking. And it knew him. Ronald, it breathed, this time not outside, not upstairs, but here, in front of him. He raised the axe. It didn't react. It simply drifted closer. Behind it, the husks began to twitch, as if waking from a long sleep. The being spoke again, but this time, its voice was different. It was his grandfather's. "You opened the door, boy. Now you have to choose." The flashlight died. Total darkness. Then. Light. A flash of lightning from nowhere illuminated the chamber, and Ronald saw something impossible. His own face among the husks. Eyes open. Mouth agape. Reaching toward him. And then the storm returned, louder than ever, rumbling beneath the earth itself. Part 4, The Other Ronald. The thunder rolled deep beneath the island, not from the sky, but from below, like the earth itself was groaning. Ronald couldn't move. The vision still burned in his eyes, his own face, dried and lifeless among the husks. The one that had reached for him. He staggered backward, bumping into the damp stone wall of the underground chamber. He fumbled with the dead flashlight, smacking it hard. It sparked to life for half a second, just enough for him to see that every husk had turned toward him. And they were all smiling. Not with mouths, but with a stretching of the skin. Horrible. Wrong. Their eyes were black pits. Empty, yet watching. In the center of it all, the faceless thing hovered near the pedestal, whispering in a dozen voices, one layered over the next, "Choose. Choose. Choose." Ronald backed toward the tunnel, but the opening behind him had vanished. The corridor he came through was gone, just smooth stone wall, seamless and solid. The island had changed. Or he had. He raised the axe, his knuckles white on the handle. "What do you want?" The whispers stopped. All at once. The air stilled. The thing floated forward. "Not what we want." It tilted its blank head. "What you left behind." It extended an arm, long, thin, with fingers like candle wax strips, and pointed at the pedestal. And there, lying on the cold stone slab, was a journal. Ronald's grandfather's journal. He hadn't seen it in years, thought it lost, destroyed in a flood. Yet here it was. He stepped forward cautiously and picked it up. The cover was cracked leather, soft and warm to the touch, as if it had a pulse. He opened it. The first page was blank. The second, blood-stained. And on the third, in his grandfather's rough handwriting, Black Barrow isn't just an island. It's a mouth. And it remembers everyone who feeds it. Ronald kept reading. It needs storms. Not for water. For the veil. They thin it. And when the veil thins, the lost things return, pieces of what we were, of what will become. The journal ended abruptly. And then, behind him, the husks began to whisper in unison, Stormborn. Storm returned. He turned to run, but this time, he knew he wasn't running fast enough. Because the husk with his face was in front of him now. Closer. And it spoke, not with its mouth, but straight into his mind. You opened the door. You opened us. The pedestal cracked. The stone floor split wide. And from the darkness beneath rose the sound of something huge moving. Chains dragging. Bones grinding. The storm overhead now felt like a heartbeat, steady. Heavy. In sync with whatever was waking below. Ronald screamed, but there was no one to hear him. Except the island. Part 5, The Mouth of the Island. The pedestal shattered. From the crack in the stone floor rose a blinding light, not warm, not comforting, but cold and surgical, like the beam of some cosmic eye. Ronald staggered back, shielding his face, and the journal slipped from his fingers, vanishing into the chasm below. Then came the voice, not whispering this time, but full and thunderous, rippling through every bone in his body, You have returned. The husks fell prostrate. The thing with no face bowed, and Ronald could no longer feel the axe in his hand. He looked down. His body was flickering. Fading. Pieces of him blinked in and out, like a bad signal, his fingertips, his arm, half his face. And where he vanished, he didn't see blood or bone, but shadows. Moving. Breathing. He backed up. No. No, I didn't return. I never. But the voice interrupted. Your body stayed. Your soul ran. But the storm has brought you back. The husk with his face stepped forward. You left me here, it said, his own voice, broken, angry. You thought the island let you go. But it didn't, it only gave you time. Ronald's head spun. Memories flickered behind his eyes. A storm, years ago. The same cabin. Waking up outside, soaked in mud and seawater, his mind blank. His grandfather gone. He had always believed he escaped something that night. Believed he survived. But now he remembered. He never left the island. He had died. Or, part of him had. And what lived inside him since, that empty feeling, that fear of storms, that sense of watching eyes, it had all been the part that stayed behind. The husk stepped closer. You only borrowed life. The storm just took it back. The chamber began to collapse. Stone crumbled. The husks rose in a wave, no longer shriveled, but filling out, becoming. They weren't bodies. They were memories. Pieces of people who thought they escaped. Ronald ran. Not toward the wall. Not toward the dead tunnel. But up. Somehow, impossibly, a new staircase had formed in the back of the chamber, spiraling upward through the roof of the cave, toward a circle of night sky beyond. He didn't think. He just ran. He could feel them chasing. Feel the island breathing, the storm thundering with every step. And then. He burst through the trapdoor, into the cabin. The lights were back. The storm, gone. Morning sunlight spilled across the floorboards. The bookshelf was still in place. No strange door behind it. No carvings. No sounds from above. It was like none of it had ever happened. Ronald stood in silence, the axe still somehow in his hand. His heart pounded. And then. A knock. At the front door. Slow. Deliberate. Knock. 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 He turned. Hands shaking. But this time, something was different. When he opened the door, he didn't see a storm, or a faceless creature. He saw, himself. But not a husk. Not a reflection. A man. A living, breathing copy of him, standing in the morning sun. The other Ronald smiled. Took you long enough. Before Ronald could speak, the other him stepped inside, looked around the cabin, and sat down in the chair by the fire as if he'd lived there forever. The real Ronald tried to speak, but his throat burned. He turned to look outside again, but the island was different. The trees were taller. The cliffs, steeper. There was no sign of the mailboat dock. No sound of waves. And the sky? No sun. Only clouds. Thunder rumbled once more. Behind him, the other Ronald chuckled. You didn't escape the island. You are the island now. Then the door slammed shut on its own. And the storm began again.